Hi, and thanks for joining us. This is Tom Brownigal with the Brownigal team at Keller Williams Realty.
And I'm the other Brownigal, Ryan.
And what we're going to do is take some of the mystery out of filling this document out. This is the State of Connecticut Department of Consumer Protection. This is the Residential Property Condition Disclosure Report. The purpose of this is we're not looking at a legal document at all. The purpose of this is merely to transfer information that you know about the house over to the hands of the buyer so there are no surprises.
Yeah, this is actually a required document that anything that you know to be true about your property, any latent defects that you've discovered while you're there within the property, it's your obligation to disclose that to the buyer.
And you have to, you don't have to do anything. Yet there is a $500, it'll cost you $500 for not disclosing this information at closing. So it's, it's the right thing to do. We're not hiding anything, and really just being honest and open about the condition of the home is really what's being expected here. Now the general format is on the top. There's you're going to put your name, your street address, and the town, and the zip code. So you'll fill that out, and then underneath where they start asking the questions, there's a yes, no, and unknown. Okay. If you know that the answer is true, you say yes. If you know that the answer is false, you say no. And if you're just not sure, just say unknown. Now, many people say, well, I'm just going to choose unknown for all of them. The problem with that is, as a buyer, you go, you all of a sudden start second guessing the honesty and the integrity of the person that you're dealing with.
Yeah, and honestly, at that point in time, they're saying, what are they trying to hide?
Yeah.
So that they go into it with the perception that there is something that is not being disclosed. So the idea of this document is trying to be as honest and open, transparent as possible, so that the buyers have some security in what they are reading and know about the property.
Yeah, perfect. Well, let's go through it. The first question says, how long have you occupied the property, question mark, and then the age of the structure. So, to the best of your knowledge. Okay. The answers, I also want to just say that the answers don't even have to be technically correct. They have to be your understanding of the answers. Okay. So, how long have you occupied the property? It's fair enough. You've been in there 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years. Just write it in. 3.5 years, 4 years. The age of the structure, easy enough to look up. If you happen to know that, put it down. If not, and you can't figure it out, we can figure that one out for you.
Yep. So number 2, does anyone other than yourself have the right to use any part of your property? Or does anyone else claim to own any part of your property? If yes, then certainly fill that out there and check off the appropriate box. Just an example, if there's a known easement on your property, this is where that would be filled in.
Okay. Number 3, is the property in a flood hazard area or in inland wetlands? So if you happen to know whether or not you have wetlands in your backyard, you would just simply say yes. And then if so, explain, and you might give some boundaries. Well, behind the fence, to the back of the property is wetlands on the east side of the property. To the best of your knowledge, you would just explain that there.
Yeah, and just to build off of that as far as the flood hazard area, you could look that up on the FEMA maps and see if your property actually falls in a flood zone area, or give a call to your insurance agent. They'll be able to pull that up as well. And ultimately, if you're paying for flood insurance, you're probably in a flood zone. So next, you have number 4. Do you have any reason to believe that the municipality in which the subject property is located may impose any assessments for purposes such as sewer installation, sewer improvement, water main installation, water main improvements, sidewalks, or other improvements? If yes, again, list what those items are, and if you know what the assessment value is going to be, then again, we would disclose that information there.
Yeah. So this is meant to avoid surprises on for the buyer, and just being as honest and transparent as we can.
I know in Trumbull a couple of years ago that they started putting sewer lines in, and they ended up having assessments on the sewer line when they were switching over from septic to sewer, and that those assessments were upwards of $20,000. And just imagine if you were a buyer finding out about that near the end of the closing. That made a lot of people get cold feet for sure.
Number 6 says heat system problems. If yes, explain. And list fuel types. Okay, so if you don't have any problems, you would check no. If there are problems, you would check yes. And you just simply, explain what the heating problems are, and please, include it's gas fed or it's oil fed. Also, are there any underground fuel tanks? If yes, give the age of the tank and the location. So you would know. Usually, we don't do this anymore, but older homes, they have had their oil tanks buried in the ground. The problem then becomes that over time they rust and they start to leak, and you have big problems. Or you could potentially have big problems, and a buyer just wants to know. If you have one or had one, indicate it and say it was taken out, and if it has been taken out, we should be able to find that at the
fire marshal.
Through the fire marshal at the town. So, and then lastly, are you aware of any problems with the fuel tank? I think we covered that. If there are problems with the fuel tank, it's leaking, it takes a long time to fill. Whatever the problem, just put them down and explain away. And there's one more. It says, during the time you have owned the property, has there ever been an underground storage located on the property? Number 2, if yes, has it been removed? Yes or no? Okay, so you would click that, check those. The third question is, if yes, which was the date of such removal, and what was the name and address of the person or business who removed such underground storage tank? So if you did have it done, it's a process, and you'll need to identify who the person was, and enter all this information in. Provide any and all written documents of such removal within your control or possession.
Yeah, and so ideally, if you still have that documentation, we'll attach that to this, and if not, then we'll want to try to reach out to the fire marshal, get a copy of that information to provide to the buyer. So number 7 asks, are there any hot water problems? So if there's if your hot water heater is not working, kind of list that there. If there, we'll also definitely want to list the type of the hot water heater and the age, when it was installed, when it was manufactured. Put that in here and just select if there's any yes if there's any problems with the hot water heater, no if there's no.
Number 8, any plumbing system problems? If yes, explain. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, yet we're going through this. If there are any leaks, look, if you had a leak and you fixed the leak, it's no longer a problem. You don't have to disclose that, right? If you have a leak and it's still leaking, or if there's a very slow leak and you get that green calcium mineral buildup on the pipes, disclose it. Just let them know. I'll just tell you just a really quick story. We had a closing, and there's supposedly no plumbing problems. During, right after we closed the buyer, went to use the bathroom, he flushed the toilet and was getting this whistling sound throughout the house. You know, that was something that really the inspector should have picked up, and he didn't. Yet this was something that the buyer, you know, had to deal with. It sure would have been nice to, you know, to disclose that.
Number 9, are there any sewage system problems? If so, set yes. If not, no, and then just list them out. And then it goes into what type of sewage disposal system you do have. So we'll want to list that under the type. Let the buyer know, is it a septic? Is it a actual sewer, cesspool?
And just circle the right one
Yep.
there.
And then under A, if it is a private company for a septic or a cesspool, just list the company that actually services it, and the date that it was last pumped, and how frequently you do pump out the system. If it is a public system, then under B, just go and let them know if there's a separate charge for the sewer use. Yes or no, just mark one of those off. If there is a separate charge, we should disclose to them if it's metered or if it's a flat charge. And then number 3 is, if it's a flat amount, let's disclose to them what the amount is and when it is due. And then lastly, number 4 is, if there are any unpaid sewer charges, mark yes or no, and if they are unpaid, we'll just have to disclose the amount.
Great. Number 10 are air conditioning problems. If you have a problem with the air conditioning system, and you'll know if you do, just say yes. If you don't have air conditioning, it's just suffice to put an NA next to it and move on. Then they want to know if there is what the type of air conditioning that you have. Is it central? Is it window? Or is it other? And you just identify that, and that's it for 10.
Yeah, for 11, are there any electrical problems? If you're not aware of any, then that would be a no. If you're aware that there's some grounds, some outlets that aren't grounded, or sparking going on, which should probably be addressed, but just list that there and select yes or no or unknown as far as the electrical outlets go.
Okay. Number 12, are you aware of any problems with the well or domestic water quality? Quality, recovery, and or pressure? If yes, explain. So, you know, depending on your whether or not you have a well, or if it is city water. If it's city water, you probably don't have a problem with pressure. But nonetheless, any water issues, if you had the water tested and you know that that there's a quality issue, you should disclose it. Otherwise, you would simply select no and move on. Actually, so then there's number A. So 12A is, was well water tested for contaminants, volatile organic compounds? If yes, attach a copy of the report. So if you did have it tested, then they want to know, they want to know what the test results are and attach the report. However, if it was not tested, you would simply, next to 12A, you would say no. You would check no. 12B is, are there any unpaid water charges? If there are, you would say yes. If there are not, you would check no. And C is there a separate expense for water usage? If yes, state, if flat or metered, give that amount and explain. So, and you'll know whether or not you pay a flat or metered amount. If the amount is the same every single month, it's probably flat. If it changes from month to month, it's probably based on usage. And you just indicate that.
Yeah. Number 13 is, are there any electronic security problems? So first question is there an electronic security system in the house? If there is not, then you select no, and you just put in that there's no system. or NA. If there are any problems, like the sensor isn't working or something like that, that's where you click check yes and list that there.
Okay, number 14. Are there carbon monoxide or smoke detectors located in a dwelling on the property? If yes, state the number of such detectors and whether there have been any problems with such detectors. So really, do you have smoke detectors? Where are they located? Carbon monoxide detectors, where they're located, and are they functioning? Just indicate that on 14 in words, provided the space underneath.
Number 15, fire sprinkler system problems. Again, first you have to determine if there are fire sprinklers in your home.
Yeah.
It's actually not overly common, but if you do have fire sprinklers, just list if there are any problems. If not, you can just put NA that you don't have fire sprinklers and just list no.
Okay, number 16, foundation or slab problems, settling. If yes, explain. You know, there are foundations that have hairline cracks that are common settling problems, settling on the floors in the basement, some settling on the walls. If you have these, they tend not to be problems. If you can see daylight through them, or they're more than 1/4 of an inch, look, they're going to find it anyway during an inspection. So you might want to just be honest and upfront about it. Most of the time, I don't see a lot of this. Usually, the answer to this is no. And many of the settling problems, if they're questionable, these are one of the things that you could and probably should address up front before you can get your home listed. But nonetheless, answer the question based on your understanding. Is there a problem with your current foundation? Yes or no. Or if you have covered walls downstairs and you really don't know, just say unknown.
Number 17, basement water, seepage, dampness. If yes, explain amount, frequency, and location. So if you have water that's getting into the home through the basement, that's definitely something that the buyers are going to want to know and will come up in an inspection. So just list if you don't have any water, then there's no problem. Just to check no. If there is, again, we'll just want to list what kind of water is getting in there. Is it a lot of water, a little bit, or just dampness during big storms or something like that? So just explain that.
Yeah. Number 18, sump pump problems. If yes, explain. Some houses don't have sump pumps. If you don't have a sump pump, it would be no, and it would be an NA, not applicable. If you do have a sump pump and it works, and there's no issues with it, then you would simply select no problems.
Yep. Number 19, roof leaks. If yes, explain. So let them know where it leaks, if it does leak, and if not, select no. Even if the roof does not leak, it's definitely important to, right under there, fill out what type of roof is it. Is it an architectural shingle? Is it just a typical asphalt shingle? Yeah. Or do you even have the stones?
Clay.
Yeah, the
clay or stone, yeah.
And then list the age. When was the roof last installed and how old is it?
Sure. In many cases, with regarding the roof leaks, you might have had a roof leak before in the past. If you had a roof leak before in the past, and you had a roof guy come over and they fixed the roof in the next storm that you had, the roof was, it didn't leak anymore, no need to report a roof leak.
Yeah.
However, I will say that if there's a stain on the ceiling, you should probably take care of the stain, because that'll come up. Okay. Number 20, interior walls or ceiling problems. Man, this is a really funny question. I don't know an interior wall, like, is your wall crumbling? I guess, then you would say yes. Is there, maybe is the paint peeling off the ceiling, or there's mold, or I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen this checked yes, but if in your opinion you do have interior wall or ceiling problems, then you just say yes and indicate what the problem is.
I mean, it could be if you have an older home, it's plaster and the plaster is pulling away from the walls. It could be something like that. But based off of your interpretation, if you feel that there are no problems, then with the wall, then select no. If you feel that there are, then select yes. Exterior siding problems. So again, if the siding is falling off, there's cracks in the siding, we'll want to fill that out and let them know if there's any problems.
Floor problems, this is number 22. Floor problems, if yes, explain. Again, it's your interpretation of floor problems. I wouldn't get too freaky about, the floor squeaks. People are going to know that, and some of that is normal in a home.
Not necessarily a problem.
Yeah, but if you have soft spots, or you feel like you're going to fall through the floor, or there was termite damage and whatever, you would know. You just indicate that and make sure that we explain away on number 22 in the space provided below.
Yeah, 23. Chimney, fireplace, wood, or coal stove problems. If yes, explain. So if you have any known issues with them, that's where you'd address. Is the fireplace functioning? This may be a good spot to let the buyers know that the wood fireplace is functioning or not. So just either select yes, no, unknown if you don't even use the fireplace area. So, and then move on.
Number 24 is fire or smoke damage. So basically, have you had a fire in the house, and it has damaged, maybe the integrity of the home itself. And this might be, some information that a buyer who doesn't have X-ray vision, but to see behind the walls, might need to know.
Yeah.
So if yes, and you're aware of smoke or fire damage, you would just simply explain what that was.
Yep. Number 25 is patio and deck problems, and so. Other than normal wear and tear on a patio or deck, are there any structural integrity problems? I think that's the more important aspect. Are you going to list, does it need to be stained or painted? Probably not.
Right.
That's normal wear and tear. So, but if there's bigger issues with the patio or deck, list them here, and that also let the buyers know what type of wood the patio and deck are made out of. Is the wood treated or untreated?
Okay. Number 26, driveway problems. If yes, explain. Pretty self-explanatory there. I mean, if your driveway has got cracks, and it cracks every single year, and needs to be potholes and sinkholes, and then you would simply say yes, and explain what that is. Otherwise, you would say no and move on.
If you feel like you're riding a roller coaster while going over your driveway, probably a yes. 27. Any known termite, insect, rodent, pest infestation problems. Again, this is things that you're aware of. So, do you have active termites? If not, this one's a little tricky, because termites, you don't necessarily see them. They're within the woods, but you can see evidence of them. but if you know that these problems exist, or even if you've treated for them in the past, it may be nice to put down here, hey, we don't have any known issues, but we treated for them in the past, and that's something where we want to provide them with,
of course,
with that information.
Sure. The other thing too is if you have termites, they come out and they swarm in the springtime. You'll know if you have termites. The real issue here is, if you have and you're aware of an issue, then you would say yes and explain, right? More than likely, if you had these issues before in the past and you're treating for them, you no longer have a problem, right? And so really the answer there would be no. If I had them 3 years ago, I had pests or some rodent infestation, and I had it treated and they're gone and they haven't been back since, there's really no reason to bring up bad laundry. So in that particular case, I would say no. And the other thing too is with regard to termites, the way they treat, you're going to know.
Yep.
An inspector's going to come and they're going to know that you had it at one point anyway. So number 28, is a house insulated? If yes, the type and the location. I just think this is such a funny question because quite honestly,
Open up your walls.
Yeah, unless I've taken the sheetrock off of all my walls, I can't sit here and tell you that there is insulation in all of the inside and outside of I don't know. Yet, if you do know, and the probability and you think that there is, then you would say yes, and you would, the type. If you've been in the attic and you see that they have fiberglass insulation in the attic, you might, say in the attic and potentially on the exterior walls. That's the best that you can do on that one.
29, any rot and water damage problems. So, this is also something that if you're aware of, probably will want to address that ahead of time, so that there's no rot and water damage when a buyer's coming and looking at the home. But if we're aware of it and we haven't addressed those issues, then of course we'll have to check yes there and fill out what type and where that damage is.
Okay. Number 30 are water drainage problems. So any water drainage. So when I turn the sink on, does the tub back up? Does the sink back up? Do I have runoff that comes off of my gutters and it floods the front yard or whatever? Any drainage water issues that are problems, in your opinion, you would select yes and explain. If there aren't any, you would select no and move on.
Number 31, are asbestos-containing insulation or building materials present? This one's pretty straightforward. If you know for a fact that it's asbestos, then we have to disclose that. But the question comes down to, have you tested for it? Do you know that anything in your home contains asbestos?
Right.
If not, then it may be a unknown.
Chances are before, is it 1970 for asbestos?
72 or so?
72 or yeah, somewhere around that time frame. If your home is older than that, there's a chance that there could be. If you know absolutely that there's not, then you would say no.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, because you never thought about it, then just say unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is lead paint present? Same exact thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you know that there is, you'd say yes. If you're unsure and your home was built before 1978, it was built before 1978 for lead, then you just might want to say unknown because you don't know.
Yep. And then is lead plumbing present? Again, it's the type of plumbing. So if you know that lead piping was used for the water systems in your home, then we'd say yes. If not, then it's either unknown or no.
Okay, and number 34, has a test for radon been done? If yes, attach a copy of the report. And then state whether a radon control system is in place or whether a radon control system has been in place in the previous 12 months. If yes, explain. So the first question, has a test for radon been done, yes or no? And if it's no, you'll select no. If it's yes, it's just simply saying then give us a copy of the report. And then state whether a radon control system is in place or whether a radon control system has been in place in the previous 12 months. And you would indicate that and explain anything that needs to be explained after.
Now, Tom,
Yeah.
what if the test was done when they purchased the home, but they don't have a copy of that radon test?
Then I would say that yes, it was done beforehand, and this was the number, and no, I don't have a copy of the report. I lost it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So number 35, does the property include any leased items? If yes, explain. The items to be listed include, but are not limited to, propane fuel tanks, water heaters, major appliances, alarm systems, and solar devices. So those are just kind of some of the items that are typically leased. But if you have any other items that typically transfer with the property that are leased, we have to disclose that to the potential buyers. And also in here, if you know what the cost is that you're leasing it. So for a hot water heater, if you're leasing that and it costs you $7 a month, it may not be a bad idea to list how much you're paying on the leased item, because that question will come up.
Yeah. Number 36, is the property subject to any types of land use restrictions other than those contained within the property's chain of title or that are necessary to comply with state laws or municipal zoning? So you may live in an area, you may live that has restrictions that you won't find in a title search. You may live in a planned community that, for example, will restrict how you use the property. You can't, as an example, you can't, for example, you cannot have a child's playground in your backyard. That might be, a use restriction. If you're aware of any of these restrictions, you would just simply, write them in. And if there are, you would say yes, right? If you're not aware of any use restrictions, just say no and move on.
Number 37, is the property located in a common interest community? If yes, is it subject to any community or association dues or fees? And so your home may be located in an area where they have monthly dues, fees to keep that community and possibly that association, commonly found in like a condominium association.
Yeah, also if you're close to a beach, right,
Yeah,
and then you have access to beaches,
you have
there's
water
a clubhouse,
rights.
and you have water rights. And
So just list what type of community interest you have, and also if it is subject to any dues and fees, and it would be nice to put down what those fees are, if it's a yearly fee and how much it is, or if it's a monthly fee.
Okay, and last but not least is number 38. Do you have any knowledge of prior or pending litigation, government agency, or administrative actions, orders or liens on the property related to the release of any hazardous substance? If yes, please explain. So, you would know, certainly if there are any liens or any issues with, relating to hazardous wastes or substances. If you have knowledge of this and there is, or pending litigation, you would just answer the question and say yes. If not, you would say no.
Awesome. Right under that, it states if we're adding any additional pages, so if there's any reports that we do have that we're adding on to this documentation, we'll want to gather those papers, put them together, and determine how many pages we actually have, and we'll list that number here. and attach that to this report.
Cool. And then there's the seller certification, basically saying that you answered this to the best of your knowledge. Depending on if there are two owners or one owner, we would know that by looking at the title. You would sign and then print. So signature on the left, and then you would print on the right. Under seller certification, that's where you would sign and then
date
send
that
it.
as well.
Yeah, and date it, and then send it back to us.
Yeah, the last page is actually the responsibilities of the buyer certification. So we actually don't have to fill anything out on the last page. That is for the buyers to show that they've received this and they're signing off on receiving and reviewing the property disclosures.
Well, if you're still with us, congratulations. I know that's a lot, yet I can tell you that hopefully we answered most of the questions that you'll have as you go through it. If there are others, call us. We're here to help.
Yep.
Again, our number is 203-268-4994.
Thanks.